And we are live. What's up, everybody? What's up? What's up, Top Shelf family? Happy Top Shelf Monday. Today is a special day. We have a lot to talk about, and we have a special guest in the building. Let me get my special guest in here. What up, Ed? What up? Let me get my special guest in the building. My brother. One second. One second. I have to get my special guest in the building. We have some top shelf conversation that is going down tonight. I'm looking forward to it. It's definitely a great conversation that's going to be had. 1 second. He should be coming on at any minute now. What's up, Jeff? What's up, Jeff? What's up? What's up, Top Shelf Village? How y'all doing? What's goody? 1 second. Just get my guest. And I'm just waiting on him to come through. Waiting on him to come through. 1 second. Yes! What's up, Darnell?
What's good, my brother? What's good?
What's good? I know this is new. This is a new space, a new field for you.
Yeah, the IG Live. You know, I've never done IG Live before, so it's gonna be interesting.
Well, get ready. In the words of my man TD Jakes.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you watch our lives for Top Shelf or anything, but we before we get into any discussion that we have, we definitely got to give it up to God himself. We definitely pray before we have any conversation. So I'm going to get in here. God, we thank you so much that we get to have this conversation. Thank you so much for my special guest, my homie Darnell, my brother. Thank you so much for this conversation that we're going to have. To everybody that is here, Lord God, with us, that will be able to listen. I pray that they'll be able to glean from this conversation and know that there is hope in a dark place. We thank you so much for the conversation that's going to be had. In Jesus' name, amen.
Man.
What's up, Darnell? Okay, so first and foremost, I got to tell y'all about my brother Darnell real quick. So my brother Darnell, I met him, I think it was about a year ago. It was last year, right?
2021, yes.
2021. So Darnell is an awesome man of God. Him and his wife, they are me and my wife got a chance to work with them this year on the project side of their company. He's one part IT recruiter, another part entrepreneur, you know what I'm saying? And what's up, Gerald? And he is just an all amazing guy. Haitian, from Haitian descent.
Got a shout out there.
And Darnell, I want you to definitely introduce yourself as well to the people that don't know you from our Top Shelf Village.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am, I'm fully 9 to 5 and fully 5 to 9, right? So my 9 to 5 is, generally I am in talent acquisition. So my background from a corporate perspective is in anything talent acquisition related. So I've been in tech recruiting, business recruiting, university recruiting, diversity recruiting across a variety of companies and sectors. So in the consumer packaged goods space, and the tech space, media space, sports space as well, in the service sector. So that's my corporate background. Entrepreneurially, my wife/business partner, we have our production company, House Party Entertainment. And right now, the primary brand that we have is Do You Know Black? And Do You Know Black focuses on celebrating and educating on Black history and culture through content, experiences, and events. So that's what we do. We're looking forward to we obviously have the game show out right now. We have a conversation series out with the contestants from the game show, and then we also have a conversation series out with my wife and I. I'm Alyssa and I. She is more than just my wife, right? So Alyssa
Right.
and I.
Get it right.
Yeah, and then in addition to that, we also have the project that you were on, that we are producing right now. So looking forward to releasing that in 2023. But we also have a huge plan for 2023 that's going to be different than anything people have seen yet, but it's going to be hopefully much more impactful than anything that we've done yet. So excited.
Yeah. So Darnell, like when my friend, who's a producer, her name is Chazine, another great creative producer, awesome, woman of God. Shout out to Chazine. She introduced me to you guys, and she told me, she's like, yeah, I was a part of this project, and it was so great. These two awesome individuals, Darnell and Alyssa, his wife, and they created this black game show about with trivia. And I was like, I love trivia. You know what I'm saying? Especially black trivia. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. You know, you'll be at the cookout talking about all these black facts and all these things. And everybody, the thing I found fascinating, being able to participate in you guys' production was like, yo, I'm learning while I'm participating in this. And not only that, I'm getting a network and connect with so many other artists like myself, creatives like myself, just black people that are moving and shaking on all platforms. So I think that's so dope with House Party Entertainment, what you guys are doing, because it's not only about fostering the trivia, the facts, the conversations, but it's also my hat's off to y'all, because you guys create this environment for people to network and challenge each other.
Yeah, thank you for that, man. First and foremost, thank you for being part of it as well, because the process of casting people, you know, they say the best ability is availability, right?
Yeah,
that's real, especially when you're an entrepreneur that's trying to make things happen. So reliability is important. But with Do You Know Black, it's interesting because it all started as a trivia card game, house party game that was focused on Black pop culture. And then we had a lot of customers that were asking us if we were going to do something that was more educational as opposed to entertainment related. And we knew we wanted to serve that need, but we didn't think a trivia card game made sense. So that's when we started to expand. And it's been amazing in terms of like the range of Black history and culture that's represented in the show. We have the all Black prize pack. So within each of the episodes, we feature 5 different Black owned businesses as part of the prize pack. So if you watch Wheel of Fortune, you'll see GMC. Yeah. But if you watch Do You Know Black, you'll see African ancestry, right? Or Moonlight Rover or something like that, right?
I love it.
So we have that. And then something else that's really important that I took for granted being somebody that's corporate was, I remember on the last day of the production, one of our photographers, like we were getting like the pep rally, you know, the motivational speech going into like the last taping, because it's an intense weekend that we host. And he was saying how he had never been part of a production where everybody behind the camera is Black or brown. And, you know, we had 20, 30 people behind the camera that were all Black and brown. And for me, as a corporate person, I didn't realize how rare that actually was.
It is.
Until everybody was talking about it. So what we're really building is, it's more than just a game show. We're building an ecosystem. We're building a process. We're building a way of thinking about our community and our culture and how we interact with each other. And what we're moving forward in 2023 is, how do we take the things that we've done and turn it into a tangible outcome, right? A positive outcome for the Black community. So we're looking forward to pivoting it from just content and taking that to turn it into something real.
I love it. I love it. So what's up, BW Counseling? I wanted to say this too, Darnell. The thing I love about you, bro, is that you're very passionate about it. It's not just some speech that you just come up and write. You know, you're very passionate about this, because you wouldn't be doing it as, you know, you wouldn't even be doing it. Like, I felt the same way when me and my wife, we came in and we had the conversation that we got to be a part of. We were like so blown away. Like, Sabina she was blown away. Like, yo, like black camera people that look like her. She was like, oh, she has locks like you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, yo, like I love this, and the vibe was amazing. The music, the playlist. You know what I'm saying? I felt like I was on the set of Love Jones. You know
It's
what I'm saying?
Alyssa. I gotta give Alyssa props. Alyssa takes a lot of pride in the playlists that she curates. So every Alyssa is so meticulous with those types of details.
Yeah.
She's because she's big into setting the mood. Because when people come through, we want it. It's like interesting because it's a production, but it's different. I like people just kind of got to be there. It's a production, right? Yes, but we it's really about like the family coming together and like-minded individuals that think about Black culture and Black people a certain type of way. And our goal is to do justice for the culture, not just to like money comes and goes, but when you create something that actually pays homage to Black culture and Black people and Black communities, it's a different type of energy. And everybody in the room, including yourself, including Sabina, including, you know, Donnell and Alyssa and everybody, we all think on the same wavelength, and I think that's important.
Amen. Amen. I love it. I love it. I wanted to ask one more question before we get into the conversation at hand. Where do you feel like this passion that you have for our community, where do you feel like it came from?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm. I'm here.
Listen, if you're here, we're here, right? But I'm gonna try to make it as concise as possible. So because I think most things that you're passionate about, there are multiple things that make you passionate about it.
Yeah.
I think first and foremost, I grew up in a pretty unique environment. I'm first generation Haitian, but I kind of grew up in where my home life and my church life was all Black, all Haitian, all of that. But I also went to what I would qualify as very diverse public school in the suburbs of New York.
Right.
So I had like a unique experience in both areas. So that's like one thing. The second thing is I'm just really interested. I'm somewhat of a geek in a sense. I'm interested in history. I'm interested in why things happen, why things are the way they are.
Yeah.
I'm interested in where I came from.
Yeah.
Right. So not just at a basic level, but just in terms of like there are things just from like, why did my mother raise me the way that she raised me? Like why do we think the way that we think? So these are important questions that when you start to get to know yourself and understand yourself, it's hard to ignore your race and ethnicity, right? When you really start to get to know yourself. So that's another area. I think just what you're exposed to when you're exposed to Black culture, Black art, consistently, and that's what you're raised in, it frames how you think about the world as well. So there's just a lot of different variables that went into it. And then also my background professionally, there was a period when I got deep into diversity recruiting because there's a pivot that occurred for me. And Alyssa, I'm not going to tell her story because that's her story to tell because she has her own set of motivations. But for me, there was a pivot from caring about Black culture to caring about Black outcomes. And there's like a big difference there.
That's good.
Right, when I was working in a diversity recruiting capacity, you care about like Black culture to a degree before that. And then when you start to work in diversity recruiting and you start working in diversity spaces and you start to build out activations and go to different events and you start to communicate with people that do diversity in other companies.
Right.
For me, being a curious person, and I'm looking around and I'm seeing like, okay, this is kind of cool, but something's missing.
Right.
And then there's that pivot where it starts saying, okay, everybody's spending a lot of money in this area. Everybody's exerting a lot of energy in this area. And if everybody really cares, then why is it still such a significant problem? Right. So that's when it kind of clicks for me, like, okay, something's missing. How can we work towards wins? Right.
Understood.
It's a roundabout way to try to make it concise as possible, right? But
I got you. Yo, that is you definitely said a mouthful, and when you break all of that down and you dissect it, it's like I can understand what ignited it for you, you know, and to pinpoint it and why you and your wife like you go so hard for this, you know what I'm saying? Because when I was like, this is not like your average card game, you know, because we have our black card revolts, volts, and these other black trivia games that are coming out, but to see it, to have a visual of it, like it's a whole different thing, you know. You guys are doing something that is unlike anything else, you know. Because I honestly wish I had to deep dive and look for our history when I was a kid, you know what I'm saying? Because they weren't teaching it, you know, and then I had to continue to keep going to libraries, one after another, like searching for our history. But it's so amazing that you guys have this platform, and you know, there are a lot of we're finding out more and more about our history every single day with these different documentaries that are coming out and different films that are coming out. So I'm thankful for that visual representation, you know. So as we pivot and we go into our conversation, the conversation at hand was like, there is hope after being laid off. There is hope after being laid off. Let me say it one more time like a pastor. There is hope after being laid off. The reason why I chose, of course, Darnell, for this conversation at hand is because recently, Darnell, you wanna chime in?
Yeah. There's two things. So unfortunately, I was caught up in the layoffs. I was with Twitter, so I went through that process. It's very interesting, but you know, I have my perspectives on it.
Yeah.
Not just from somebody that went through it, in probably one of the most visible of the recent layoffs that were happening.
Yeah.
But I also have visibility to the whole industry, right? Where it's not just Twitter, although that was most publicized, but we know that Meta went through
Absolutely.
massive layoffs. We know that DoorDash went through layoffs. We know that Amazon went through layoffs, Stripe,
Lyft.
you know, Spotify,
Yes.
Lyft, you name it. So it's definitely something that I've experienced personally firsthand, but
Yeah.
also experiencing from the perspective of a recruiter is a completely different way of experiencing it as well.
And let me ask you, Darnell. So my first question to you, kind of like, what is the biggest lesson that you learned from being laid off?
You know, the it's interesting because the lesson that I personally learned from being laid off was a lesson that I learned before I got laid off, and that I've been hyper aware of for many years, which is it's not your company. Right?
Can you say that one more time for the people in the back?
Right, it's not your company. So that's the reality. It's funny because I always have a pretty level head on these things, because I can't bash somebody for doing what's best for their company at any point. I can say that the way something was executed may not have been ideal or tasteful or professional, but I can't knock you for making a business decision. However, for many years, very early on, maybe it's the way that my mother raised me or whatever it is. But I always said until it says Darnell Inc., right, on the you know header, then you're always at the discretion you're at the mercy of the company. So that's the lesson that was reaffirmed for me in this process of being laid off, is like it's not your company. But that's not to say that you have to properly place the company in your life and what the company does for you, but also what you do for that company as well, right?
Yeah.
So to get a little bit more specific with what I mean by that is, this is not saying that you shortchange the company, because if you shortchange the company, then you shortchange yourself. If you shortchange the company and you're not going and approaching work and approaching learning and approaching growing and approaching the projects in a certain way to achieve wins, and winning is not something that you turn on and turn off. So you can't approach work and your 9 to 5 or what you're doing for somebody else's company in a in a half-assed way, right? That's the only way I can say it is because then all you're doing is shortchanging yourself and what you could have gotten out of that experience. So something that I've and building up your ability to problem solve, right? So whenever I'm working at all times, if you learned the lesson after you got laid off, then you probably weren't paying attention. So I'll stop there and that'll answer your question because I'm sure we're gonna keep on talking.
Okay, Darnell. Okay, Darnell. One comment that was said by the love of my life. She said, "We become so loyal to a company that we forget the company may not be as loyal to us." And this is to be understood. Myself personally, not only you, Darnell, we all go through these layoffs at a point. Companies do these things. Like, you're not alone. Like, in 2020, I was laid off from 2 companies that I was working with, and also I was definitely touring with a comedy troupe, and like I had hosting gigs as well. So it's like everything just shut down for me, and I was trying to figure out like what that looked like to kind of come back into the climate, you know what I'm saying? Because I was doing all these things, and now it's like 2020 is coming, and we're in the middle of 2020, and it's like everybody's trying to figure out if the world is going to come open back up, and Aunt Diggity said it. I was a part of Church and Laugh, and we were, doing steady gigs. We were going from place to place. From we had gigs in all boroughs. We had gigs in different cities, and out of nowhere, just everything just shut down, and everybody had to figure out how to do this thing in the world. And I had to get back into the workforce. I had to start interviewing again, and that's a whole process, right? Darnell, like trying to learn how to like, okay, I gotta change my resume. I gotta dress up, and now interviews are no longer face to face; they're virtual. Like 100% of them, like that I was going through. The first interview I had, it was like virtual, and I had never really experienced that, with that being said, my next question I would say would be, with the recent layoffs, should people still be loyal to companies, or should we have the mindset of like independent contractors? Because a lot of times it's like, you said it yourself, like, okay, until it says Darnell Inc., I gotta remember that, like, it's, I'm just an employee of this company. I'm just a number. I clock in, clock out, whoop-de-whoop. But do you think that people should see themselves as independent contractors?
So that's interesting question, and I'll give you my perspective as a recruiter and what I would qualify as like somewhat of a career coach in a sense. Having seen a lot of people's experiences, I think that all parties should be loyal to their own interests. The company should be loyal to their interests, and the employee should be loyal to their interests. However, in my opinion, the employee should be loyal to their personal growth, to their personal development, to what they can earn, and corporations can give you those things. So I'm well balanced. Some people might say, no, you have to be loyal to yourself. But in being loyal to yourself and doing justice to yourself, you should approach working a certain way, right? So it's not necessarily saying that, oh, I'm going to be loyal to this company for the purposes of being, just for the sake of being loyal. But I know for me, as like an employee, when I go into any situation, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I want to be here for 6 months, because what wins am I going to get in 6 months? That's really going to help develop my skills, right? That's really going to help develop my portfolio. That's really going to be able to speak to what I've been able to accomplish in 6 months. Unless it's like contract roles, but that's a different story. Typically, the way I say it, and this is just general rule of thumb, but it's not necessarily, this is all fluid, right? Because it can be customized per person. But in the first year, you're learning the job, right? Because it's 4 seasons, right? You have 4 quarters. So in the first year, you're going through every quarter like one time. Each quarter is a little bit different. There's a seasonality to it. So in the first year, you're just learning that company. You're learning your role. Even if you've done that exact role somewhere else, you're learning how to do that role at that particular company. So that's what you're done, and you've developed certain things. But then on the second year, that's when you're mastering what you've already learned. So for me, like, if I were to say I want to stay at a company for at least 2 years, this is not about me being loyal to the company. This is about me being loyal to my development and my personal growth.
There
You know
you
what I'm saying?
go. I love it. I love it because I think you know what I feel like. I feel like people get used to just having a job. Like I have a job now, and that's the goal. And I don't have any other goals. I don't want to sharpen any skills. I just have the job itself. And so they get comfortable and they dedicate uh, their life to this job, and they don't think about like the career part. You know, I see that a lot. What's up, Maybelline? How you guys doing? Um, uh, Anthony, who's my brother and a podcast mate, he said in the interview, one question you should always ask is ways to grow, to put employees in higher level positions. I think you should always be looking for growth, like in any extent. And if they say like growth, oh, okay, well, we'll talk more about that later. The red flag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, you'll grow somewhere, but there's as a recruiter, you know more than I, like you probably have seen different people come and go from within the company, without the company, like in the times that you've been in the space that you're in. You know what's crazy is like I just saw that DoorDash laid off 1,250 people, employees, and I said to myself, this is like happening more and more, right? Every day with different companies, like these big name companies, not regular companies. Like this ain't just like the grocery store down the street. This is like big companies, conglomerates and stuff. Do you feel like with this we're heading into a recession because of this, all these layoffs?
Yeah, so I have my perspectives on it. Before you jump to that though, I don't want to forget that. What I'll say also is like I do not knock companies for being loyal to the company, right? Because they have to do what they need to do for themselves. But I think the way that a company treats employees during bad times is critical, right? So you can do things in a respectful and professional way that makes that has empathy and care, right? Mm-hmm. So you can still be loyal. It's like I'm still gonna let you go, but I'm still gonna do what I have to do. So there's that. But I think that employees should really think about their own experiences in the way that I described, and I think that companies should think about that as well. But leading into this question, companies sometimes it's easy for companies to skip certain steps. Yeah. Because there are so many people at play and perspectives at play, and the process of influencing this person or that person. Sometimes like things can get conflated or things can get muddied where they shouldn't be. So when you talk about this, like there are some companies that like, let me backtrack. So with all the layoffs, I think there's certain things that were leading up to where we are. So I'm getting into the question that you actually asked. You had a situation where when we were entering into COVID, and this, I'm not an economist, right? So this is just my perspective based on just observing. Right. That's my disclaimer. But when we were heading into COVID, a lot of people didn't know what was necessarily going to happen, right? People were worried that the economy was going to crash like right then and there. There's a lot of people that weren't able to go to work, so on and so forth. But then you had this huge boom that ended up occurring. That was like it during the pandemic, with people staying at home, with people ordering food to come to their home, with like DoorDash, Uber Eats expanding during the pandemic. People couldn't get enough content. Like for example, with Do You Know Black, we launched Do You Know Black in February of 2021. So that was like the kind of the heart of when things were still going on, the pandemic. The amount of views and all this stuff, like because people were just home, and we built our model off of that information, which was not good information. It was very in that time period. So you had a lot of these companies that were riding a high of growth that occurred during the pandemic, that ultimately now that people are getting back to like pre-pandemic habits, leaving the house, going out to eat, not ordering in as much, the cost of content or the cost of your attention, all these things are happening now. I think a lot of these companies that made these big bets hoping to ride the wave of continued growth are realizing like, okay, that growth is not continuing.
Yeah.
Right. So now a lot of the companies leveled up their hiring in a way that was not necessarily sustainable. So I'll give you an example personally from my experiences as like a recruiter. And I think I'm a very good recruiter. I think I'm very good at what I do. And literally, you want to talk about in your DMs, like during 2020, it got to the point where recruiters were more attractive and sought after than engineers. I was talking to people that were recruiters. We were shocked. We were like, what's going on out of nowhere? It was like the amount of companies, big name company, almost every big name company out there was hitting me up. Like, oh, you have a job, you have to do. And for me, it wasn't about me being loyal to my company or Twitter or whatever. I was like, no, listen, I want to learn here. I want to grow here because I think I can get some more wins here. That was my goal, was to grow. So I was pushing, I was doing something that I tell people not to do, which is I was rejecting calls. But funny enough, almost all of those companies that hit me up went through massive layoffs. So whether I had stayed at Twitter or I had jumped to another company or whatever it is, I probably would have been laid off regardless, right?
What's up, Sylvia?
Yeah. So that's kind of what happened, right? Where there were just there was such a huge influx of hiring during 2020 and 2021, especially for like recruiters and talent acquisition, that we all kind of knew it wasn't sustainable. So you have a lot of companies that were hiring permanent employees, so on and so forth. But then what we also noticed was there were a lot of companies that were just hiring contractors and temporary workers, and they weren't adding to their permanent workforce, which I think is a little bit more sustainable, right? Or scalable or responsible, right? And there's some big companies. So there was this different philosophy. So I think that right now what's happening and what we're seeing is companies coming back down to earth on some of the big bets that they made that only really lived within a COVID and pandemic world. Are we heading into a recession? I felt that context was important to answer that question. I don't know what qualifies as a recession. I do think that at some point there's going to be ebbs and flows, and we'll probably see an uptick of hiring again come February, March, right? Because end of year budgets, so on and so forth. So that's one. But I do think that when you have this many people that are in the market at the same time, but because you're talking about a lot of heavy hitters, you're talking about the best of the best engineers from the best companies. So I do think that what ends up happening is people will end up spending less. And when you have people that are spending less, saving more, that has an impact on businesses, on corporations, on consumerism. And then when that has an impact on consumerism, then that has an impact on, well, if we're not getting as much revenue because people are saving money, now it doesn't make sense to have certain staff. So I do think that there's a foundation and a framework here that could potentially lead to a cycle that will lead to a version of a recession. Once again, I'm not an economist, but I do think that these are all the components that would create something like a recession.
And let me interject. So working for Twitter, right?
Yeah.
You know, we all know Twitter. We know what Twitter is. I was thinking about this. People will look at it on the surface and say like, okay, because Elon took over Twitter and he's making cuts and he's doing this. But I know that there's a bigger, I should say, like a bigger system of the way things take place. Even when you do have someone that is taking over, there's a bigger thing that has to happen but like, it's not like, oh, this person says, like, I acquire the company and I'm about to just fire everybody or take over. Like, there's more to it than that. And would you say you agree or disagree that, like, because, you know, people see it information comes so quickly. And so people will see it and be like, it's because Elon is a part of it. And they point fingers and blaming him for everything. And they say like, okay, Elon did that, like another move by him, you know. What would you say to those people?
So I'm going to answer that question. Sabina asked a really good question. So let's not forget that one.
Oh, definitely not.
Right. So let's not forget that. I am going to be professionally safe, and with that question, well, I'm going to be professional, right?
Offline. We'll talk about it offline.
Right. But I'll give a general answer. I'll give a general philosophy of my thought process. I think, and what I was saying before we got laid off, because people were hitting me up beforehand, like what's happening, and I kept on saying, "Yo, I'm gonna ride the wave. I'm gonna ride the wave." I fell off the surfboard, you know, but that, because once again I was being professionally selfish, because I wanted to learn and I wanted to grow, and I was like, "Yo, I'm trying to get wins." So there's that. And what I was telling people before it all happened, because it was really interesting the weeks leading up to it, I was like, listen, the only difference between what's happening at Twitter and what's happening at all these other places is the fact that Elon Musk is a celebrity.
That's it.
In my opinion, right? I do think that there are some nuances that I won't speak to, that I know, right? But I won't speak to it, just to be professional. But where I think Elon does have more autonomy and acts more autonomously than many other CEOs may act, and he has his reasons for doing it. And when you pay, $44 billion for something, you can do whatever you want with that thing, right? So there's that. I do think that he made a lot of decisions unilaterally. Those conversations are happening in offices that I probably don't have the code for the elevator to get to that floor, right? So that's happening there. So I think it's a mix of things that are happening. I think that some CEOs may feel like, okay, like we still want to present a certain way because we want to set a certain tone for what we view as professional and how comfortable we want our employees to feel and the type of culture we want to have at the company. So I think that those are some nuances that may exist, where different CEOs will have different perspectives on what culture they want to facilitate within their environments, and CEOs are allowed to do that. And the market and the employer and the candidate market will tell them if it's a good thing or not. But I do think that to a degree, Elon acts with some more autonomy than some other CEOs may act. But I don't think it's so different, because if you think about it, a week after Twitter did the layoffs, right? Then I think Meta did the layoffs a week after. Twitter laid off about 3,500. Then Meta laid off 11,000. Then the week after that, Amazon laid off 10,000.
That's
the same week that Twitter did its layoffs. I think Stripe did its layoffs, Lyft did its layoffs, Open Door did its layoffs. So all of these things were happening. So I mean, yes, it's easy to pin it on a celebrity like an Elon. Did he handle it the best? I'm not going to comment on that because I've been in the game too long. But that's my thought on that.
Okay. And I wanted to, so I see the question that Sabina asked. She said, curious, what careers do well during recessions?
Yeah, so this is something, so one of the things that you were talking about before, with something that I learned, right? There was something else I want to say, but one of the hardest things I think going through that process is, it's not so much about like interviewing or all this stuff. It's you have a plan, right? Like you don't plan your life on a day-to-day basis. Like you plan your life on a yearly basis, right? Like, what are the goals I want to accomplish this year? And typically where you work is a stabilizing force in your life, right? So one of the hardest things in being laid off, especially when it's sudden, is trying to figure out, okay, my whole plan that I had just got like rocked.
Exactly.
It just got rocked. How do I prioritize? Like, what should my priorities be now? That's a hard question. That was something that, like, when it first kind of happened, I'm like, okay, how do we move on to the next win? But it's trying to figure out, like, what do I prioritize? Should I prioritize urgency? Should I prioritize this? Should I prioritize that? All of these different things are going through your mind. Like, should I prioritize industry? Should I prioritize money? So you're trying to figure that out in the midst of all this stuff happening. To Sabina's question, why does that matter? is one of the things that I started to prioritize.
Right.
Is when I'm looking at companies, what is that company's revenue model? Where is that company getting their money from? Is it real money or is it funny money? Are they making these big bets on something that doesn't make sense, that's something that's invisible, something that's an idea? Or is their revenue model like rooted in something that I think is sustainable, is practical? So I think that there are I think that if you look at a company's revenue model, where is
Absolutely.
it getting its money? How is it making its money? That will kind of tell you if a recession were to hit, is it still going to be sustainable, right? So when you think about
Absolutely.
healthcare, like when in 2008, it's funny because being Haitian, you can probably guess what my mom did for a living. Right, she was a nurse, but
Nurse.
right, you could have probably guessed
I was
it,
about to say nurse.
right? You could have guessed it, right? But in 2008, like nobody in my family got laid off, right? Because they were all healthcare workers.
Exactly. No,
So
I understand that.
so you think about like the healthcare industry, which is relatively sustainable. I think a lot of companies in the financial sector may be sustainable,
Yeah.
but I think look for where is the money coming from, and that
Absolutely.
will tell you, I think, what companies might be recession resistant.
That's key. Look for where the money is coming from. And that's very much key. Um, Darnell, how important would you say is knowing your worth when you're doing a career pivot? What's
Who?
up, Teray?
Yeah, that's a good. See, I'm trying to be as concise as possible because
Yeah.
some of these questions are deeply philosophical, more so than people really understand. Because worth is interesting. So, for example, I'll give a specific example. Is like in my job search, I've been fortunate, and I say fortunate because I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different recruiters, really ever since it happened. I'm in process with a lot of companies right now. Pray for me because nothing is guaranteed.
Yeah.
In the very beginning stages of a lot of conversations, and it's sorry, I just completely blanked. Repeat the question again.
So I said, how
Oh,
important is
worth, knowing
knowing
your
your
worth.
worth
There we go.
when you're
Okay,
doing a career pivot?
so as I'm having these conversations, one of the conversations that always comes up is, what's your compensation target? So if people are, let's break it down, assuming that worth means compensation.
Right.
My answer, what I tell people is like, listen, like that ask me that question is how
What's up,
I'm
Kyle?
valuing myself is how I'm valuing myself and my worth is not necessarily rooted in Darnell needs to make X amount of money per year. What I tell them is like, because I have a deep understanding that compensation varies from industry to industry. Compensation in the media industry is different than compensation in the bank and the financial sector is different than the compensation in CPG industry. It's different than compensation in tech industry. It's different than compensation in, if you're working in hedge funds. All of this stuff is different. So when I speak to these people, I'm like, and they ask me, I'm like, listen, for me, my goal is I want to be paid at market rate for this particular industry. But you also need to understand like what industries would pay what your baseline is. So there are certain industries where I know that somebody of my level of experience in terms of years, if I stepped into a leadership role in certain industries, like I would be taking a massive pay cut. That's not to say that that company is not paying me my worth, right? Because in that industry, they are paying me my worth for somebody of my profile. That industry just may not necessarily work for me and what I'm looking for, right? So this is where this idea of worth comes into play. So that's one. In terms of worth, for me, it's I know what I want in my next job. So worth might be these are the things that I need to get out of the next position that I hold experientially.
I love it.
right?
I love it.
So
Yeah.
that may be another way that you're valuing worth. So there's that. When we get money is important, but we should not trivialize the idea of worth and compensation in respect to the long-term arch of our career, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it really does. And you know what I'm thinking about is like the workplace is changing a lot. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely changing so much. As a lot of people are pivoting. A lot of people are either going back to school. Some people are changing their whole path altogether. Some people are trying to like figure out like what that next step looks like. I feel like now more than ever, we are so connected to so much information that's going out all these different places, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are like, okay, I want to be an influencer. I just have to kind of like put the time in and then, build up my fan base and then, and then we'll get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people want to be models. Some people want to be doctors. Some people want to be lawyers. And it's like, how do I get there? Like, what's the next step that I take? When you are like let's say you are recruiting a client, right? Do you feel like certain companies, right, should give, because we're moving into a more virtual space,
Mm-hmm.
like with hybrids and remote, do you feel like remote work should be an option for all companies?
Oh man, it's interesting because it's interesting how this has become a controversial topic, right?
Yo, has it?
Uh, and I have my views. I have my views on it. So it's funny. All these questions are so layered, especially coming from because while I'm a recruiter, but I'm also a businessman, and I'm also what I qualify as an HR practitioner. So all these things within this space are of interest to me. So when you talk about this idea of remote work, interestingly enough, before the pandemic hit, I was recruiting for a very large sports company, and I remember I was leading tech recruiting for them, and we were having these conversations around remote work because all of the engineers, even before the pandemic, before remote became a thing, all these engineers were working remotely. You had offshore teams in that contractors in India, right, and these other countries. You had a remote workforce in all these other places where people in tech, like engineers that were highly skilled and sought after, they were like, I'm not coming into the office 5 days a week. I'm not. They were like, yo, I can come in 2 days a week. I can do my job from home. So in the tech space, a lot of engineers were already kind of like pushing for this. And I remember we were trying to us in the recruiting team, because we're having so much trouble recruiting talent, because this was a thing. And a lot of the, I guess we can call people that had more conservative views of the workplace,
Yeah.
they were like, no, we can't do it. And we were just missing out on so many people. Some people were like, listen, I'm not going to commute from Long Island all the way to this part of Jersey, right? I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
So even before the pandemic, it was something that me and the recruiting team that I was on, we were pushing for, but there was still resistance there. And it's funny because I was having a conversation last week with a friend, and I was talking about how when it comes to business in life, I don't think about the idea of a thing.
Yeah.
I think about the outcome of a thing. So when we're talking about it, some people are like, well, I feel that when I'm in the office, I can collaborate with people more. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but you shouldn't project that onto other people. You know what I mean? I'm like, you shouldn't project that to other people, because
keep that to yourself.
Right? Like, and that's okay. And then it's like, oh, well, they were talking about like, well, performance, can suffer if you're not in office. So then I was like, you see, here's the issue that I have with that statement. The first thing is that performance should be something that is evaluated irrespective of where you are.
Mm.
So whether you're in office or not, if you have certain goals and a person is not meeting those goals, if they need to be in office to meet those goals, or if they need to be at home, for you, if they're at home or in office, your mind shouldn't be like, oh, like you're at home and you're not performing, so you should come in. It should be like, you're not performing. It's up to you. If you know that you need to come to the office to perform, then you need to come to the office to perform. My job is not to tell you how to perform. My job is to hold you accountable for performance. So it's kind of like interesting when people start to talk about this, because I think that they move away from this idea of performance culture,
Mm-hmm.
outcomes culture, results
Yeah.
culture, to hold on to an idea of how they think work should be, instead of
Yeah.
focusing on, well, what's the goal? Are they reaching the goal or not?
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's good.
So that's my perspective on it, and I
Yeah.
think that as adults and employees should be held accountable for performance,
Yes.
not for where you perform. That's my opinion on it.
Talk to me nice. I love that, Darnell. I said that because the company that I work for at the moment, it's like I literally heard this from a coordinator of mine. They said, hey, like ever since everybody's come back, the numbers have went down in terms of like attendance, and they went down in terms of like the goals that were the markers that were supposed to hit. Like everybody's hitting it, but it's not as potent as it was when we were working from home, right? So I say to myself, then what does that tell you? You know, I think people were more inclined because they were in their own space, you know, and they knew the job that they had to do. But I feel like management was like, okay, but we don't want to be babysitters. This way, you guys come back in the office, we can monitor you in a sense,
Yeah.
right? But that's, and then also there's this building that's just sitting. You know, it's just sitting there for this entire time, and we need to put people in it, you know, which I understand, but at the same time, it's like, but the people that are working for you are saying to you like, hey, this is what we prefer. Hey, this is easier. I know people that are commuting from Philadelphia to Jersey to work, like in my office, right? And I asked them, I'm like, wow, like you really coming from all the way from Philly, deep in Philly, every day to this office, you know, and you know, they respond like, hey, look, it is what it is, you know, I'm gonna do what I have to do, but you know, you understand the needs of the business, you know. It's a different time. I love what you said about how like people, like the IT guys were doing remote work before it was a thing, you know, because like that's very interesting, because it's like now that it is a thing, a lot of people like, yo, I would rather they have choices now, right? Well, I'd rather be at home if I can do this from home. Like I know I can get so many things done, and it goes to the thought of you were talking about earlier. Like what's your goal? What are you trying to hit? You know what I'm saying? Are you just like, okay, I'm gonna just slack off at this one and then I'm gonna go work, like really work at this one? You know what I'm saying? Like it's like what you know, you're looking at two positions or maybe one position that you're trying to like pursue. What's up, Q? How you doing? Anthony asked this question: how do you define tech in 2050 for the black and brown community?
I'll answer that in a second too, but I also want to tag on to what you were just saying. Is like for me personally, I'll go into the office a few days a week. Like mentally, I'm prepared to do that.
Okay.
But I in the back of my mind, I'm also looking around like, this is not Darnell Incorporated, right? So if you need to come to the office a few days a week, I'll come to the office a few days a week. That's no problem. But I know for me personally, you're not getting the best version of me when I have to commute, because I'm not getting as much rest, right? So I know that for me when I have to, it's okay But when I have to commute, when I have to wake up 2 hours earlier or 2.5 or 3 hours earlier than I normally have to wake up, and then I have to spend another hour and a half or 2 hours commuting and then decompressing when I get home. Now what you're basically doing is you're taking up 5 hours of energy, right? For me. So I know for me that when I'm commuting and I'm going into the office, I personally don't have as much energy throughout the course of the week. I didn't realize how much energy I could have and how much I'll be able to focus and optimize when I get that extra sleep. When 5:30 hits and I'm like, oh, I can just go to the kitchen and then get my dinner ready, and I don't. So just for me. But once again, I'll go into the office. I don't have a problem doing it. But and even like, I know for Alyssa, like when she's been going back to the office a couple days a week as well. And then those days, like she'll come back home and she's like so tired, not because she like if I had a transportation machine and I could just boom, I'll be in the office every day. I don't care. But it does take away energy. And I think that what happens is like, because I think people are holding on to the idea of it. And I find it interesting as well that when tech companies hold on to this idea of having to be there in person because of certain things about like collaboration and so on and so forth, which is interesting to say the least. I personally think it's more of a power thing, but I won't get into that. But then it's like, if you're a tech company and all of the work that you're doing that is driving this tech that allows us to be able to do it from home, it's like literally the work of the most brilliant tech minds are what created this capability for us to be able to work at home in a way that we weren't able to do it 20 years ago because we didn't have Zoom. And not 25 years ago, not everybody had a cell phone and Slack and text messages and all of this stuff. So I think it's interesting, but I can say for me personally, once again, if I'm working for somebody else's company and they want me to come in, sure, no problem, I'll come in. But I also know that I personally don't have as much money, as much energy as I would normally have.
Absolutely.
Right.
No, I get that. I definitely get that. And to answer Anthony's question, like where you feel like tech is going in by 2050, where you feel like we'll be with tech for the Black and brown community? Is it gonna look like Wakanda? What we talking about?
So I'm actually going to talk about Do You Know Black a little bit.
Let's go
in this section, because I have a perspective on what everything needs to be for Black people. I don't know where tech is going to be for in general. I don't think any of us know. I know that the metaverse and virtual reality, gamification, content. I don't know if we can. I don't know if society can keep pace with what's happening and the saturation and even the revenue models. For example, on IG, I was on IG, and I started noticing it was like regular post, sponsored post, regular post, sponsored post. Every third post was a sponsored post. Right. And I was like, something's wrong. I was like, something's wrong with every third post is a sponsored post. So it started to make me wonder, like, what's the future of business? Not just what's the future of tech, but what's the future of business? What's the future of advertising? I think marketing is going to change dramatically. I think how you reach your consumer is going to change dramatically. One of the things that I did this year, I'm actually going to be finishing my MBA in 2 weeks. Thank God. And then
congratulations, my brother.
Thank you. And then I also did 3 certificate programs this year. I did one with University of Cambridge that was in circular economy and sustainability strategies. I did one with Cornell that was in equitable community change. And then I did another one with Wharton, which was in business strategies for a better world. And the reason,
excuse me, sir.
Yeah, the reason that I did those is because I believe the future of business is with purpose-driven brands, purpose-driven everything. Because I think that consumers, we will get back to a point where purpose will matter one of the things that somebody had mentioned in one of the episodes of Do You Know Black Kickback, he was like, Jeff Bezos just went to space. Flint still needs water. So
Wow.
this statement just really was impactful to me, because it really made me realize the direction of companies are going in, right? Like, you have so many companies that are talking about, how do we get to Mars, and how do we see this next planet, and how do we make other planets inhabitable, and how do we find the next, life beings, and this and that, and like all of this stuff, right, are talking about like space exploration and all these things. Meanwhile, Flint still needs water. So why is this an answer to Anthony's question? It's because I think the future of business for Black people has to be related to the advancement of Black communities, and not just performing to Black communities.
I love it.
Whatever it is, and
Yes.
that's what we're trying to root Do You Know Black in. So if you're a tech company, we have to get past the point where Black people, where we get appeased by things so often, right? We can't be appeased by actions. We can't, like, with Do You Know Black, I'm not even gonna get into all the intricate details, but like we've had so many conversations where what they're really looking for they're looking for brands that can allow them to exploit the Black dollar, right? And this is what, and we're not built that way right now, right? And we'll never be built that way.
Right.
We are there. People label performance as partnership. So I think that, what does tech look like for Black people in the future? My hope is that tech in the future is for Black people, is Black people demand that technology and business operations result in very specific outcomes for the Black community that are rooted in tangible, measurable progress and outcomes, and not just great marketing.
I love what you said about exploiting the Black dollar. That was a bar. That was a straight up bar. It's definitely true. I remember we had kind of like a discussion about, like, when you were telling me about how you guys were coming up with the idea for Do You Know Black, and a lot of people wanted Do You Know Black to be maybe something else, like a certain other thing, like chop it up, and to do this with it, you know what I'm saying? Or they maybe wanted to acquire the idea and then make it something completely different from what you guys have.
We literally had people like tell us, like, yo, you got to dumb it down.
Wow.
Yeah, we've had that. So it's interesting, you know what I mean? It's interesting. It's interesting perspective, but I'm fully corporate. I'm on both ends of things. So, but I do think I'm optimistic about it. But I'm optimistic about the future in terms of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Because literally I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, hold on a second, cause I was racking my brain day in, day out, just like thinking about ideas. I'm like, there's something, I know we need to pivot. I know we need to do this. Like, something's off. I don't really want to compete on content. It's too saturated. I'm literally getting stuck in between, somebody doing a dance and somebody else doing a joke on their wife, like, I'm literally stuck in between these content creators. And I was like, we have something deeper here.
Absolutely.
And I was thinking on it for weeks, and then literally I was sleeping and I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, I had this idea and I was like, hold on a second. I'm thinking about that in the morning, and then I told Alyssa, and it's a good idea if Alyssa doesn't push back. So
if Alyssa ain't like, listen, let me tell you, I don't like it. She ain't like that. It's different. I wanted to say this too, Darnell. As we come to a close on this conversation, I wanted to ask this question. I've seen you promote on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
And you've encouraged so many people. And I was like, when I usually go through LinkedIn, I see people, you know, they're commenting on the workplace. They're commenting on like, hey, I just got a new job, or hey, this is what I learned about uh, being at this job for this amount of years, or hey, LinkedIn is not this and it's this. You know what I'm saying? But with you, I've seen set apart, like you are literally giving hope to those people who are going through it. People that you may have known, your colleagues from Twitter that have been laid off, and to other people. I love that that stands out. Like, hey, you're reading this, and just know that there's hope on the other side of this. So my question to you is, like, you as a Christian and as a man who's in this situation, like what keeps you to like encourage people, like, and to give that love back to people via that platform, and what makes you do that? Whereas like a lot of people be like, yo, I'm just about to go on to the next job, forget what just happened.
Oh man, that's interesting, man. I'm energized by people succeeding.
I
So,
love that.
you know, that's kind of what it is, man. Like when you surround yourself with hopeful people, your life
Yeah,
is a lot better. Like when you surround yourself with hopeful people, your life is better, right? When you
yeah,
surround yourself with people who just, you know, have like, if you can be that person that can support somebody in their most difficult time,
yeah.
you know, I think that's important. I think that something I was talking to people about is like all those people who were going through it in 2008, because we were a bit younger then, right? All those people that were going through it in 2008, you know where they are? They still here. You know,
Exactly. Talk.
so even in your toughest time, even in the hardest times, you know, I think it's important to have a good outlook. I posted something up today, and I was like, you know what? I ended up deleting it on Twitter, on LinkedIn actually. And it's funny because with LinkedIn is evolving. I don't necessarily know if it's for good or bad, because it's truly becoming more like a social media platform, and it's kind of awkward in a sense because
It is.
people are really trying to like hone in a certain type of brand. So sometimes when I post, I'm like, you know, like today I posted something. I'll tell you what it was, and then I deleted it because I was like, it felt too showy, you know. And sometimes when something's really on my heart, then I'll do it. So like one of the things that we did was myself and several other recruiters, we volunteer our time to do resume reviews through like this Google form sign up and all this stuff.
That's amazing.
So we have that, and it's free resume review from recruiters. So there's that. But the thing that I basically posted today was I got some really good advice from somebody, and they were talking to me of you, and I was like, yeah, you know, this particular part of it was concerning. And then I was like, well, you know, I wouldn't say concerning per se. And he was like, no, it was concerning. It's okay for it to be concerning. And he told me, he was like, don't diminish how you feel.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to like, sometimes like I do get in the mode where, and people will get into the mode where it's like, you diminish human feelings.
Right.
Are you concerned? Oh, no, I'm not really concerned per se. You know, it's not that bad. Are you afraid? Oh, well, you know, God's brought me through it before, so he's going to bring me through it again. You know, are you
Absolutely.
frustrated? Are you frustrated? Yeah, I'm frustrated, but you know, there's 1,000 other people that are going through the same thing, blah, blah, blah. And it's so easy to like, every single time you think about like a human emotion that's negative, to try to dismiss it and try to diminish it in that way. And, you know, for me, what he told me is like, don't diminish it, like feel it, but don't let it cripple you. So I think that part of when I'm on LinkedIn and I'm trying to support people, it's trying to help people have good perspective, that's not diminishing how they feel, but giving them good perspective on how can you move forward towards a certain type of outcome.
I love it.
Right?
Yo, Darnell, that's amazing. Like I got so much, you understand, I got so much from this conversation. And I think every time I talk to you, like I get encouraged and I really feel like uplifted in what I'm doing, because, you know, me being like just starting in the tech space and understanding like what's going on in the field, and like, but not even only that, the blackness part of it. It's a twofer because first I was black before everything, you know. So I love that. I love the work that you and your wife are doing, as well as what's up, Chris? Um, so I love the work that you guys are doing. Before we get out of here, I just wanted you to definitely plug your platforms, plug what you and your wife doing, anything you have coming up, anything you just personally have coming up, just anything that you're working on.
Yeah, so obviously my personal handle is Live to Failure, and that's like my motto to life.
Yeah.
It's a spin off of when you're lifting weights, like you're not growing if you never fail, if you've never bench pressed and then had that weight come back on you and needed somebody to spot you, then you're not growing. And that's my same approach on life. Is like you push yourself to the point when you're gonna grow. You push yourself to the point when you're going to fail, but you also push yourself to the point when you're going to need somebody to spot you, right? Because
Yeah.
that's kind of thing. So there's that personal platform, business platform. For Instagram, it's at Do You Know Black. On TikTok, it's at Do You Know BLK. And then on YouTube, it's at House Party Entertainment.
Love it.
We have that project that you and Sabina were on that we're going to be trying to drop. We're going to be dropping it sometime in 2023, probably mid 2023, which
Can't wait.
I'm super excited about it. It's going to be dope. So there's that. Additionally, we have some really big plans that Alyssa and I are probably going to tell you and Sabina about it before everybody else knows about it at some point.
I'm glad we
Right?
get the
Y'all
Haitian
part of the
input.
family. Y'all part of the Read Black family on the inside of it. So there's that. But yeah, we have some really big plans for
and I
what we're
wanted
trying
to
to
tell
do.
you too, Darnell, like if you ever need a host or anything like that, let me know. I know I could have texted you that, but like just I'm just letting you know.
Well, just so you know, this is part of what we're building is a talent network. It's not just you use. There is no waste. There's a reason why we reached out to you, and there's a reason why we reached out to you a second time. There's a reason why we connected with all the people that we're connecting with.
Right.
It's deeper than just content, and that's what I want people to understand. Alyssa and I are doing a lot for two people, and then we also have Donnell, who helps make things easier, but it's a lot. So we're moving a little bit slow, but when we move big. So what if we can do what we want to do in 2023, I think a lot of people,
right,
including the people that have been involved with us, are going to be very proud and happy and uplifted by what we're getting ready to do. So
wow, this conversation is so awesome. Like I can't wait to see all that Do You Know Black is going to do in 2023. And it's going to be an amazing year. I'm claiming it, speaking it over you guys. I'm speaking it over just like anybody that is a creative, business oriented entrepreneur going into a new field. I'm speaking that over everybody. I just also wanted to say that tomorrow is a holiday, everybody. Make sure that you tune in. Tomorrow we have a new episode dropping for Top Shelf Podcast. Make sure you tune in. We have a new episode dropping tomorrow. Make sure y'all tune in. You don't want to miss this episode. We're doing a thing this month where it's like this is my week to do the IG live. Next week we'll have, I believe it's Jeff, and then it's Anthony, and we got two other great topics that they're going to go into for their week. And we just want to make sure you guys tune in. You can find our podcast on thetopshelf.com, all of our platforms. We're on Amazon Music, we're on Stitcher, we're on Anchor, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. I said Amazon Music, of course. And we're on Apple Podcasts, if I didn't say it. And make sure you guys check us out on all streaming platforms. Our link is in our bio. Definitely, you can check us out anytime. Before we get out of here, I know we do the word of the week. And the word of the week, Darnell, is usually like a word that will signify the week that you have going. Like what's a word that you think of that is gonna like what do you feel like your word of the week is? Mine, I would say, is action. My word is action because I've been wanting to. You don't have to say why, but I'm gonna say why. It's just because I've been ramping up to do more content, get back into my content bag. Just comedy wise, drama, whatever. Just mixing it up just to get go at it. What's your word of the week?
I would say, intention.
Oh, okay, intention. I like that.
Yes, intention.
Intention. Yo, one comes first. Say inspiration. I wanted to also encourage you to, Darnell. Like, I know this is your first time doing an IG live, but people love you, bro. Like, everybody in the community, Top Shelf Village, everybody's talking about it. Like, everybody's like, yo, we need to. Anthony said we need to do a part 2. A lot of people's like, great interview, Darnell. Like, just be encouraged and don't be afraid to definitely do an IG live because it's very easy. And this is very fun, man. And you get to engage with a lot of people, like people that follow you guys, Black, and just with the whole community. Darnell, more than anything, bro, I just want to say thank you for giving me your time because I know time is the most expensive thing ever now. I remember after I saw you after that comedy show, you was like, I got some time.
Yo, man, listen. I don't know if you're a movie fan, but the Matrix Reloaded, the Frenchman, he said, "How can you ever have time if you never take time?" So,
woo! I am a movie fan. Yeah, that's great. How can you never have time if you never take time? That's fire.
Yeah.
Yo, listen, that's fire. I thank you though. I do still appreciate you for taking the time out of your schedule and rocking with us over here at Top Shelf Podcast and really giving us some great nuggets of wisdom. We appreciate you wholeheartedly. Everybody, if you can't give it up for Darnell, man, thank you so much for taking the time. And Darnell, we gotta have a part 2 sometime. So it'll be dope.
It's just let me know, man. Whatever you want to talk about, we love good conversations. So just let me know and we'll make it happen.
Most definitely. Okay, guys. Until next Monday, same time, 9 p.m. Remember, Top Shelf Tuesday tomorrow. Episode dropping tomorrow. Make sure you tune in. Peace.